Okay, everybody, welcome back to Your Crisis Coach with Scott H. Silverman and me, Fredd Carroll. Today we got Lindsey, but first we're going to talk to Scott because I need to know, like every week, how Scott's doing. We got to check in on him. How are you, Scott?
Oh, man, I got to tell you, I'm excited about Lindsey today because it took a high school graduation, a car accident, multiple emails, and so this better be good shit, Lindsey. Fred, I'm doing good. I'm so worried, watching my daughter was booked on a plane a week ago to go to Israel. And we were kind of arm wrestling with her nicely because she's very independent and we didn't want to say, don't go. I mean, I wrote a book, Tell Me No I Dare You. So when people hear no, they kind of go, thanks for sharing, and they move on. So she made the decision on her own the other day to cancel her trip. Well, clearly, and this is before Iran and the bombing. So it's been a stressful week or so, but otherwise, things aren't too bad. I just don't like the way I see our country going. And I just heard the other day, opioid and the fentanyl overdoses are back up again. So, and you and I've talked about this for years, Fred. So it's not a surprise. And everyone says, well, wait a minute, they've shut the borders down. I said, last year, the cartel, because they're smart business people who make so much friggin' money, front loaded, getting fentanyl here in the U.S. So they supposedly put about a 24-month supply into the U.S. before the end of last year because they weren't sure which way the current administration was going to go. So I really caution family and friends, don't get comfortable. So
yeah, I wish.
Yeah, go ahead.
So first of all, people should know your daughter is a grown adult also that doesn't need her daddy right now to make decisions for her, correct?
No, I don't make them for her. That's why it was tough because, she's looking at the same information I am, but she's passionate. She's a big supporter and she has a couple of people there she wanted to visit with. And I said, well, I wasn't worried about the immigration thing. She's got, really good papers as far as we know, but she grew up in San Diego. If they see that, they may question her. No, she made her own decision and it was hard, not to intervene on it, but I knew she'd make the right decision. I supported either way.
Well, good. Well, let's get to Lindsey. Is it Cohen? Did we say it right?
Yes, you did. And thank you both so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And honestly, Israel is a very beautiful place. So hopefully she'll be able to get over there soon. But the timing is definitely rough to go right now. So she made the right decision, I'm sure. And I'm happy she had you to kind of consult her about that as well.
Yeah. So, Fred, how Lindsey and I met, just so we had a point of reference. I used to date her grandmother in Indiana. No, Lindsey, you had a post on LinkedIn, which I thought was very impressive. And you don't take this wrong, but you appeared very young, but with a lot of insight. And I think the way you gave away some tips and suggestions, I thought was very straightforward, very simple, but very powerful. And I reached out to you and you responded favorably. And that was, I appreciated that. So you're here today to really tell us about you and tell us about what you do and how you do it and why people really need those skills, especially in an environment today. There's people are losing jobs, but employers need people. And, we don't know what the shakeout's going to look like. I mean, I serve veterans in my treatment center. Well, of course, the VA is getting hammered by the federal government as far as reduction of budget goes. So it's putting our business in harm's way. But we believe we're going to live through it because the need is there. And I think the need for what you do, and I have 25 years of work placement experience. So it really resonated with me, because I've been talking about it for years and hearing from someone else, that isn't a salesperson that's going to sell you a book and a 16-hour plan that if you do this, and, and 1% of the people that do all that might get something out of it. So anyway, the show is all yours. Tell us about you. And then Fred will bring in some of the really intellectual questions that I just can't think of.
That sounds great. Yeah, I'm so happy LinkedIn connected us. I've been doing this 8 years as a career coach and resume writer. And when I started 8 years ago, I started it because I was in a position where I was trying to get into an industry, pharmaceutical sales. And I was told by recruiters, you're not qualified enough. You won't get in. You need to sell printers first. And I was like, I'm not selling printers. Like, I don't like them. I'm not doing that. And if that's what needs to be done, so be it. But there has to be a way. So I networked. And then I obsessed. I did so much research on what recruiters look for, what hiring managers want to see, what a good resume looks like, a good cover letter, and the steps to make sure I get in the industry. And then that's kind of how this all came about. I got into pharmaceutical sales. I got that dream job. And it really started very organically. I went to my friends and my family and I was like, hey, anybody need a resume? Did it for free for like a very long time. I was just having fun with it. And then next thing you know, people that were not qualified to be getting into the major banks or major tech companies were getting crazy job offers and getting in the door so quickly at Amazon and all these big companies. And I thought, I think I have something here. So I started annoying my friends and family on Instagram and posting on my stories. And then next thing you know, it's word of mouth. And I had a lot of support from a lot of people that I know, including like my friends and my family. And it grew from there. And then COVID hit. And to your point, with a lot of the changes of people getting laid off and all the adjustments, people are like, who do I go to? Who can I trust? I don't want to just pay some random person on the internet. And people knew at that point that they could turn to me for that information. And it really, kind of grew like wildfire. And then I started posting on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. And in the last couple of years, I've been able to reach people worldwide. And I give free advice on there. I don't want anything in return because it's one of those things. I just do it truly to help people and I love it. And yes, the business side is obviously helpful. And I do have expensive taste, but I will say it is definitely something where I can help people. And I like seeing them go from no confidence to being told they can't get into an industry by somebody to hearing them a couple months later, weeks later say, I got these interviews, I got my dream job. And that's really what keeps me going and excited and kind of growing all the services that I offer.
Well, Scott, I want to say first, when you opened your remarks, you started by saying she appeared young, and I have yet to meet a woman that doesn't like being called young. So I don't think you were rude in any way. So I think she's fine. So where do you live?
Yeah, and I agree with that statement. I thank you for that as well, Scott, for your compliment. But I live in Delaware. I was born and raised in Pennsylvania, went to University of South Carolina, and jumped right over the border super quick. We were always in Delaware anyway, and that's where my family was. So came back and I love it. It's a little hidden gem with a great network of people and close to the beach, close to all the major airports, all the major cities. And right now it's beautiful. So I'm in Rehoboth Beach a lot.
It's not hot right now?
Oh, it's hot. It's hot everywhere. I feel like right now it's like 100 degrees today. But
yeah, I'm right above you in Connecticut, and we are getting hammered with heat right now. Scott's always, we don't even talk weather with Scott because he's in San Diego and he gets the golden weather every day of his life. So we exclude him from weather conversations.
I'm so jealous. My sister actually lives in San Diego and I'm so jealous. And whenever I go to visit her, I get like the June gloom, or the last time the weather wasn't great. We wanted to go surfing and all these things. And she's like, people don't leave the house when it's 60 degrees and raining in California. And she was right.
We shut schools in climate weather 60. No, we have a mean temperature. I believe that it's changed a little bit, but it's around 69, 70 degrees year round. And, normally we get 6-7 inches of rain. So it is pretty unique. There aren't many places on the planet where it's like that. Even Hawaii, because it has a lot of rain. Mm-hmm. So, and I grew up there, so it's kind of what I know. But I never throw it in your face, Fred. I try not to.
I know, but I feel the pain, Scott. I feel it. And, we just had our first Saturday with no rain in the first time in 18 weeks. 18 weeks in a row, we had rain on Saturday. That's more rain than you get all year. Yeah. And it's not fair. So with Lindsey, with what you do, and you're aware what we do, I thought maybe what would you recommend, let's say for a former addict, somebody that's recovered and come out of it, how much do they say, how much do they reveal about that? Is it a positive? Is it a negative? Where does it lie?
How much do they reveal in the sense of how comfortable are they sharing that information with their
Yeah, like sharing on in their resume because they might be proud of it. It's an achievement. It would be an achievement in a sense. Is it Is it viewed as an achievement?
Well, so this is actually I work with the Wilmington Recovery Center, which is right down the street from me, and this is what they specialize in as well, is very similar to you, and they when I try to coach people on how to go about this, I always tell everyone, I'm like, listen, you have to go with what you learned and how you've grown from it instead of letting it hold you back and not be so confident about it. Because the second you're not confident with the information and you don't own it, they're not going to believe that you're going to be the employee they need you to be and step up. So the way that we've pivoted on resumes is you can even say sabbatical. You can put in there, career break, and you can put that on there, and people are either going to have an issue with it or they're not, and they're going to let you in or they're not. And when you get in the door, you need to be so sure and so confident that, hey, listen, that's where I was. And here's where I am now. We don't have to worry about that ever being an issue. And I've done a lot of growth here. And I actually had a client that had a DUI. DUI is a couple things, but this specific client got pretty drunk in college and did something not so great. And that was on his record. And there was a lot of really horrible things that came out of that. But the best thing that did come out of it was now he is clean. He doesn't drink at all. And he was really worried about that on his record. And how do you explain that? And I said, listen, let's get you in the door. Maybe somebody that's hiring also maybe had, suffered from issues and addiction with alcohol. You don't know other people's stories. Something might resonate. They might say, okay, let me give this guy a shot. And once you're in the door, show them what you learned and show them how you grew. Because to be honest, people that drink, they show up on a Monday and they're hungover. The employers do not have to worry about that with somebody who doesn't drink. And they're going to go in with a really clear mind and probably give 100% every single day because they're more clear-headed than somebody that probably drank and stayed up till 2 a.m, binge drinking. So I said you can kind of spin it that way. But when I walk into the centers, the biggest thing I see is the lack of confidence and how they are a little ashamed of it. But I've seen people come out on the other side and be more confident, but it is a major topic of conversation when they're in the rooms, and they're really terrified to have the conversations.
So how about the top 3? And I'm going to ask you this, but I want you to answer this first question. Then the second question is, what do you think the number one reason why somebody hires somebody? But the first question is, top 3 things that you think if you only had 30 seconds with somebody because they're already angry at you because you're not going to get them a job, you're going to show them how to get a job and give them some tools. What would be the top 3 things that you would share with somebody if you had 30 seconds, 60 seconds to tell them, do 1, 2, and 3, not necessarily in that order, but if you do 1, 2, and 3, you have a much better chance of getting to 4, 5, and 6 to close that deal.
Yeah. So the biggest thing I always tell people is, 1, get your resume in order. Make sure that looks really, really good, and make sure it shows not just your responsibilities at your job, but your achievements, your results, and the actions that you took in this job. How did you make an impact to the employer? How did you make an impact to the bottom line of a company? And I don't care if you went to jail, you learned something there. There's always a skill that people have learned in any trade. And I've had addicts be like, oh, do I put Dunkin' Donuts on there? Like, it's embarrassing. And I was like, heck yeah, let's talk about how many customers you help, how much in sales you generated, and what you learned there. And let's be proud of it. Let's own it. And so the resume is a step 1. The second thing I always recommend to people is use your network. Use the people that you know and go to them first. And maybe there's somebody that works at a company and you want to learn more about it. Or maybe you want to uncover a little bit about a job that you don't know anything about yet. Get them on the phone, talk to them for 15 minutes, use your network, and then go on LinkedIn and connect with people you don't know that work at these companies and start connecting with them and asking them, hey, do you have 15 minutes of time? Would you mind referring me in the system? And then next thing you know, you build a relationship with somebody who's already an employer there or a hiring manager. And the other thing I always tell people to network is use as many recruiters as possible, because you can use as many as you'd like and let one of them find you that job or get you something that resonates. And I reach out to them on LinkedIn as well. And I would message them directly as well. So when you're on LinkedIn, the key is to also have your LinkedIn filled out, because not everybody has your resume yet. So how are they supposed to know to take you seriously? It's your online resume. And the third thing is the interview skills. I can get you in the door with a really great resume, or you can create one yourself. But if you fumble the bag once you're in the door and you don't prepare for those interviews and you don't seize the opportunity you're given and give your best performance, and at least make sure it's like a really difficult decision for them to have to even say, oh, one person or the other, then what are you doing? What's the point of the resume? You have to sell yourself in the interviews. So my point there is learn how to sell yourself in interviews. And once you can master that skill, you will get any job. It's a skill set. So those are the three major things: your resume, your network, and your interview prep skills. And I'd say, to answer your second question, or the other question, is the reason people hire a current candidate isn't necessarily because they're the most qualified. People hire people that they like. I have gotten jobs that I am not qualified for over somebody that had 20 years of experience because they liked me. I had a likability to you. Because the bottom line is, these employers, they need to have to tolerate you for 40 hours a week. They're married to you, not their spouse, essentially, because they're with you more than they are their own family. So if they can't tolerate you, they don't like you, and you're not going to make their lives easier as a manager, then why would they hire you? So it's not necessarily the skills that matter, because you can be trained and coachable, but it's also just, hey, give me that likability. Let's have a great conversation. And that's what makes a good interview and a good employee.
That is it's very true. Even in what I do for work, for real work, at least, I'm in the lumber industry, and I am specifically in the management side of warranties for windows, in Connecticut. So I don't have a lot of skill in this, or a lot of experience in Windows. Truthfully, I didn't even know much about Windows a year ago. But the guy I ended up getting the job, he lost the job because he wasn't likable. And that's the number one quality right now I'm showing, is that's what everybody says, is it's a lot easier to call you on the phone because it's always a smile on the phone, or a joke, or I'm very loose. I don't let things bother me. Even the pressure of things, I never let it bother me with the customer, put it that way. Behind closed doors, different thing. I'm pressing, and I'm trying to impress at the same time, because I want this job. And it is nice to it's actually very comfortable being liked at your job.
It is. And I think that's really how you build a brand at work. So nobody knew me coming into pharmaceuticals at all. I didn't have a network. I didn't know somebody in there. I didn't have parents that did that job. They're entrepreneurs. I didn't know anything about this. But when I got in there, I built a brand, and I tried to connect with as many other managers, other people on, teams as I could. And I built a very, very big impression very quickly. And that's how I got noticed. And that's how you get things like Rookie of the Year, Platinum Performer. It's so much more beyond that. It's like, if a manager on another team doesn't even know your name, and it comes down to making sure you get a promotion or you get what you need, they don't even know your name to be like, oh yeah, that person deserves that. You want them to say, yeah, they helped me with something. And to your point, you don't even have to know anything about the trade that you're in. If you're owning a company or you want to start one, you don't necessarily have to know everything about lumber, everything about roofs, or anything. You just have to hire people that know what they're talking about, and you go in and you secure the deals, and then they go do the labor. And I always say that about even like contract work. I'm like, the biggest thing is these contractors, nobody trusts them. They don't show up. They don't hold their word a lot of times, from what I see in my experience and being in real estate too. That's what I've noticed. And I'm like, if they just could get that part down, they would get more jobs and they would scale it. And it's all about that as well. It's not just about knowing the trade. It's also about knowing how to run the business. And if you're not good at something, hire it out. If you're not good at marketing, hire somebody that is. So it can kind of go both ways. And to your point in the beginning, Scott, too, it's like all these companies are laying off, but it's also like, wait, we needed those people, because I don't necessarily know how to do that as the hiring manager, as the owner of this business. So it's a really tough thing going on right now with these companies. And I think even too with AI, like that's taken some jobs, right? So it's definitely a really interesting job market right now, of anything that we haven't even seen before.
It's if you think about it, to all of your points there, if you look at the administration from the president down, there you go. Mm-hmm. No skills in politics. And look at some of the people that have been hired. I don't think any of his top secretaries actually have history, which was the big issue, with the screening process. But they had the relationship with the decision maker, who was the influencer who brought him on board. I mean, that's obviously a grand scale, but it's a clear example about how important relationships are. You can have, and none of some of these people, when you listen to them talk about what they're doing, you're like, wait a minute. But it doesn't matter. A, they got the job, and B, they were appointed by the most powerful person in the country, who basically didn't want to be in politics and didn't want to run for president. Something motivated him. So I think that's a great idea. But what I want to say, I worked with difficult populations, people who had major gaps in their employment. And we used to get people jobs all the time. We had a 75% placement rate. And I'm talking about parolees, probationers, women who'd served time, and they've never had a traditional job. But they were moms, and they were engineers, and they were motivators, and transportation experts, and cooks, and chefs, and repair people. So we took, and we actually just moved over their skill sets, redirected their skill sets. And I got challenged all the time by people going, how do you get these people jobs? And whenever somebody says to me, those people, I always get excited. And so I had the local business journal do a survey for us. And we asked them to ask employers, and we asked for upper management and above, from ownership, upper management, to give us their opinion. What's the number one reason why you hire somebody? And that what came back, which was interesting, the way they framed it, was the number one reason they hired somebody is because of their attitude. They came to the interview smiling. We taught people who were all tatted up, put on a shirt, tie, got clothes donated. And when they went in, 20 people, they were smiling. They were sitting up straight. They had their resume ready to go. They had a cover letter, and they had the basic skills that someone shared with them who cared on what it takes to get and keep a job. And then the idea was, once you do that, then you move on to the career path, especially if you have a 10-year gap. Where have you been the last? Well, I worked for the state, and then I took some time off, and now I want to go back into the mainstream. So that's what resonated with me. I read your stuff, and it's, some people would look at that and go, you got to do this, Lindsey, and you really have to have that, and you need a college degree, and then you have to have no, you don't. I mean, my attitude was, if you can fog a mirror, I can help you get a job.
Yes. And you nailed it right on the head too, with it's all about the transferable skills. So I don't care what job you did, there's a transferable skill in there that can translate to another job title or another industry. And you can't coach a bad attitude. I don't care what industry or what you're doing. If you're the smartest guy in the room, you know so much about code or whatever it is you need to know about. If you have a bad attitude and you're not coachable, nobody's going to want to work with you. And if you have the mindset of, hey, I know everything and I know more than you, nobody's going to want to work with you. And that attitude, I always tell people, you want to be the positive one on the team. You don't want to be the one that complains in the training class. You don't want to be the negative one. Leave that to somebody else. Go home and complain to your spouse. Do not do that in the workplace, because it brings down the entire culture of a team or a company. And you don't want to be that person that can do that. All it takes is one. And so that attitude is so important beyond.
And to your point, the hiring manager in bigger companies, their job is to find somebody that'll work alongside of her colleagues that they're going to like. Mm-hmm. So if you're likable and you're talking to the hiring manager and you come with a great attitude, because if they're interviewing all day long, you know what they're hearing. People just put their feet up on the desk and go, I've done this and I've done that. And well, why are you not doing it now? Is it possibly because of, they don't go there and say your presentation. So you're right. You're onto something that's so important. And I got to tell, I work with a workforce partnership. I work with EDD. I work with HR. I work with EAPs because of what I do. And people all the time, in a matter of minutes. I have a little video. I don't know. Did I send it to you? It's called Handshake 101. Oh. I don't know if I sent it to you or not.
I got that one. You said, no, that wasn't that one.
I'll send it to you. Where you teach somebody how to shake someone's hand, look them in the eye, and smile.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
And it's a couple-minute video. I'll send it to you. I'll find it and send it to you.
So that's so funny. You actually bring that up. So this weekend, I was with my friends, and we were with one of my guy friends has a really tough handshake. Like one of my girlfriends, like that could like hurt her. Like one of my friends, she was like, that, how? And we were talking about the importance of a handshake. And when I walk into a room, it's really interesting. I don't know what it is, but I will have, if I'm with my partner at work and we are approaching a provider that's also a male, they'll shake his hand and not mine. It's a really weird thing. So I'm like the first to initiate. I'm like, shake my hand, like, let's go. Or don't shake that. It's okay. Like I've seen you guys for 3 years now. We're friends, but don't shake his hand and not mine. And so that approach is interesting, and they won't make some people don't really make eye contact, and they'll make eye contact with the other person in the room. And I'm like, this isn't a very welcoming environment. And then when I was talking to my friend, I'm like, hey, here's how to like, don't hurt a girl with the handshake, right? The guy with the meaty hand that like has a really hard handshake. I'm like, pressure points, right? And don't squeeze the heck out of it, but also eye contact and a big smile. And I think the other thing is I always like to, say somebody's name back to them because I'm pretty bad with names. So unless I'm like, hey, nice to meet you, Scott, and then think of another Scott I know or somebody famous that's a Scott, I probably won't remember the name. So if you're in these interviews, you have to remember the names. You have to know the name of the hiring manager. And you have to go in with a good approach. And I remember for my interview at my pharma company, I got the interview. I was first to go. I was 9 a.m. and they had a long day ahead of them. I'm like, how am I going to stand out? So I walked in the room, shook their hand. They're like, and I immediately go to the small talk. And I said, they were like, how's your morning? I'm like, great. I went on a run this morning. I read my book. Like I had a great morning, listened to a podcast. And that opened up a whole can of amazing worms that we could talk about that made them forget they were interviewing me. And it was common ground. I was talking about the Peloton. It just so happened the hiring manager also loves Peloton. So handshakes, first impressions, eye contact, and that small talk is so important to get everybody comfortable in the room.
So I could tell you, I don't talk about it too often. I guess I've written a whole book on it, but I don't talk about it often. One thing, even when you watch this video back, you're going to notice that I tilt my head to the left, and you'll probably see that on the screen now. Part of it is because my screen is over there, so I'm watching you talk. But the other is I have a lazy left eye, which I've had since birth, always had it. But the confidence level you lose with it, it's similar to, even though not many people, now I'm in my 50s, not many people do have the same gall to come up and just mention or point it out. There are few, though, believe me, but it does beat down your confidence on it. So I don't tend to look people in the eye, and I see the result of that, and it feeds down to all your confidences. But I could also say the reason we don't shake women's hands, for instance, one of the reasons that I think HR has changed our whole mindset in the corporate world about inappropriate touching, not that it is inappropriate to shake a woman's hand. It shouldn't be, but they're erring on the side of caution rather than the other. That's my opinion, at least. I don't know if it makes any sense.
No, it's a good approach too. And I like the vulnerability there. I didn't even notice the lazy eye. I mean, I haven't seen you in person or anything like that, but I have a really horrible tendency since I was a little kid. I look up all the time. So I have people do this. Like, where are you looking? And it still makes me insecure. So when I go to interviews, I'm not worried about what I'm going to say or how I'm going to say it. I'm solely focusing on eye contact. And even when you're on video, it's like you have to look at this little dot. So it's like etiquette. You have to look at your camera in order to make that eye contact. Nobody really knows that. So when they're doing Zoom interviews, it's really confusing. They're like, where do I look? Look at the camera. But it's also really distracting, right? To like be like, well, what do I like? It's all really a weird thing we have to conform to and get used to. But I think to your point, like we all have our tics, and some people make me so nervous. My eyes shoot like crazy. And they're like, is there something on my forehead? Is there something in my hair? And I'm like, no, I'm just not making eye contact. So I'm the same way as well with the eye contact. It can be difficult. So it's something we have to focus on. And then the HR touch, I do think there is an issue with that for sure. I think that everyone's gotten so over the top with like making sure they don't say anything or do anything inappropriate that it's actually made people just so stigmatized of like, okay, opposite sex, like just don't even approach, don't look at them, look away. You don't want to get reported. you don't want to ever come off a certain way to somebody, and everybody has different boundaries as well. So it's an interesting take. And I think that you're definitely onto something there, especially coming from like the male.
Yeah, and that's just my personal, I even feel it, even though as a girl dad, I'm so adjusted to, my youngest is 25. She was just here, 8 friends in my pool. Now, most of my guy friends would go nuts with 8 25-year-old girls in a pool. I could care less. I wish they'd all leave, because to me, they're just a nuisance. I've known them all since they were little kids. I don't look at them in any inappropriate way. And in fact, I look at them from a father's standpoint and say, please put some clothes on, please. I don't need to see this much, and my poor stepfather who lives there is almost 80 years old. He owns the pool. I'm sure he's happy as a clam, but boy, is it frustrating. But yeah, the sexism side of things does play a role, not so much in my business. There aren't a lot of women involved in my business. I could probably count 5 women in my whole, lumber business isn't really, it's basically a man's locker room at times, and it's not enjoyable. It's not fun, but
that's your point.
But let's move into, before we wrap this up, tell us some of the things in your life beyond what you do that you enjoy.
So I'm big into traveling. I love going into other cultures. I'm a huge foodie. So if I can go somewhere where I could just eat all the food and just enjoy it and be on the beach, be in the sun, I love that. I also love to surf, wakeboard. I actually just got a boat this last weekend and I'm so excited so I can take that out. And I'm always with my family at the beach as well in Rehoboth. So that's definitely something I love. Volleyball, anything active. I'm like my dad. I don't sit still very well. So sitting and watching sports or watching Netflix is not my thing. I'd rather go like play them. And that's really a lot of my free time. I also am very entrepreneurial. So I don't just do 9 to 5 corporate. I also have real estate as well that I invested into 5 years ago. And then just kind of been building the portfolio from there. And then also build websites on the side as well, that I started that in college and I still do that as well. So kind of already starting stuff, and I have a vending machine business. So when you don't have kids and you don't have pets, you kind of have a lot of free time. And that's really what I've been really pushing a lot of my time into, has been kind of scaling a lot of these businesses and trying to have a lot of passive income, because I'm pretty passionate about that as well. I just don't believe in one line of income. I always tell people, you can get laid off at any time. Like, what's your backup, right? And, what's that other thing you're going to grow on the side that's a passion for yours? And honestly, the resume business doesn't ever feel like work. Like, it's a huge passion. Yes, it burns me out, but I love it. Like, because I basically come home from work at 5 p.m. and then I do that till 9 p.m. So I've got a 9 to 5 and a 5 to 11 or 5 to 9 is what I tell people. But yeah, definitely love to keep busy and kind of spend my free time doing anything else, especially on the weekends. I'm a work hard, play hard kind of girl. So I like to keep very busy.
Well, that's good. You live in the right state for not liking sports, because you have none.
Exactly. I'd have to go to like Philly and things like that. And I grew up watching the Eagles and stuff. But, again, love to like do yoga and like all these sports and pickleball and volleyball. But yeah, watching the Eagles every Sunday, not my thing. Unless I'm lying.
Yeah, me neither. So, Scott, you want to ask your magic question? Scott has a question. We argue about this question back and forth, Scott and I, but Scott wins every time because he's the talent. So go, Scott.
Well, I don't really win, Fred, but I consistently irritate you, and there's some joy in that. So your hobbies change as you get older, Lindsey. You'll see. I'm sure your folks will tell you. So the question I have is, what is it we haven't asked you that we should?
It's an interesting question. I'd say the biggest one that most people do love to know about, especially from like a client standpoint, is what's most important on the resume? Like, what's the structure of it? And what is that all supposed to look like? That is like the number one question I get when people get overwhelmed and they're trying to do it on their own. And I always tell people it's a really simple structure. And I actually have a whole format and a whole template on my website, like on my Instagram. They can just download it and use it. And basically, it's your name, your designation, which most people forget. Especially if you have like your MBA, you worked really hard for that. And sometimes it's on the second page of your resume. So make sure it's the top next to your name. A catchy subheader that's very relevant for the job you're applying to. Your contact information with your email and LinkedIn hyperlinked, with your phone number and your location, just city and state. I can't tell you how many people put their full address, and nobody needs that information unless you're already hired. And that's when they need it. So then after that, you do a summary or objective statement, which is no more than 3 or 4 lines long. So that way people actually read it. And then you get your skills section, which are very quick bullet points there. So that way, again, it's digestible, no more than 3 lines long or 4 lines. And then you get into your work experience. And the work experience, again, those bullet points, no more than 2 lines long, focused on action, results, achievements that you did there. And what type of problems did you solve? And how did you help the company progress? And what awards did you get? And then your education. And I'd say that's the biggest thing, along with like how many pages. No more than 2 pages on your resume. I have worked on a 24-page long resume. I had to condense down to 2. It is possible and you can do it. That's what your LinkedIn is for, to kick any extra information over. So I'd say those are definitely my most common questions, or just the layout and the general format really like stresses people out.
And I would like to add, your email should not be chickchaser69 or something like that. It should be a professional email, right? Yeah. How many times have you seen inappropriate ones on my desk that are from when they were 15 years old? That's a common problem. I see it all the time, Scott, and when I'm hiring people.
So funny that you say that. So I had a client, he was born in 1969, but he had his first last name 69. And I was like, delete that. Like, what? Like, it doesn't look good. And then I've had people be like at Yahoo, I'm like, delete that and get a Gmail. Like something that's relevant, or at AOL. Like, that's going to make you look old. You're worried about the ageism thing, which also, by the way, guys, is another thing I want to touch on as a question I get. People are all worried about, oh my God, I'm old. I'm going to get beat out by these like 30-year-olds, all this stuff. No one wants to hire me. I'm like an old dog. No one's going to hire me. Here's the thing. You're going to have a hiring manager that either wants a puppy or they want an older dog. Okay. And the puppy, they want to train, they want to mold them into whatever they want to mold them into. And they really want someone that's cheaper. So that's what they're going to go after. You won't even probably get the interview. And that's okay, because you want to go where you're valued and where you're wanted. And then you're going to have a hiring manager that wants somebody they don't have to micromanage, that comes trained, that's like ready to go. They want the old dog. They don't need to teach them any new tricks. They just come ready to go. And they've got the budget for it. And that's where you're going to go. And the biggest thing I always tell people is go where your value is. It is no different than dating. Why would you chase after somebody that doesn't want you? Okay, why would I chase after an employer that doesn't want me? It doesn't make any sense. If they don't see the value, go to a different room or a different table until somebody finds your value. And it might take you more shots on goal. You might have to go on 50 interviews, or same thing with dating, 50 dates, but somebody will realize your potential and want you on board. So just go where you're valued. And I'd say that is my biggest hurdle I find with people. Like, own it. If you have 20 years of experience, you're older, own it. If you have 1-2 years of experience, own it. Just own it. And if you have addiction issues, own it, because you've made your way through it. You've come a very long way. And people need to see that value in there.
She knows how to talk, Scott. She's good. She knows. She broke the record for answering your question the fastest.
Yep.
Usually I have to edit 30 seconds of pause out while they think about what Scott just asked them. So, Scott, you want to give out your phone number today, Scott?
I do. For those of you who are in a crisis, those of you who don't want to be in a crisis, call me anytime or text me, 619-993-2738, and Google me, Scott H. Silverman, or find me at yourcrisiscoach.com. And whatever you do, know that it's okay to ask for help.
And Lindsey, do you have any information for people to contact you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my business is Limitless with Linds. That's Limitless with, and then my name is LYNDS. And you can find me on my website, www.limitlesswithlinds.com, or on Instagram and TikTok TikTok at Limitless with Linds, or on LinkedIn, Lindsey Cohen, Cohen. First name's Lyndsey. I have to spell that out because my parents hate me and spelled my name weird. So, yeah, there's my name, and you guys can find me anywhere. I also have my email on there and my cell number. If you need any resources at all, I'm happy to be a resource to anybody in the audience.
Well, thank you very much. And I'll make sure all your add-ons are in the notes below and people could click them and they could find you. I appreciate you coming on. You were a very good guest. You're very good at talking and answering the questions. But it's over, Scott. This is it until next week. So if nobody has told you they love you today, we love you, and we will see you again next week. Okay, hang out there for a minute.